Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. We're here to roll up our sleeves and get down and understand the capital project a little bit better. Roll them up and I left my sleeve on. All right. I have a few questions before we even begin, but the format would be for who's going to present from your own. Okay.
We're here to jump in and help out and talk about numbers in any capacity or anything else that's helping the process.
If I could just. Yeah, okay. Come on up here if you'd like to be able to see the board better. There may be easy explanations to my initial question, but I just wanted to understand a little bit about the numbers before we jump into the detail. The I don't know, 5:30 or so, we saw these documents and we got a chance to look at the financials that are on here. There's 3 pages that have a comparison from January 24 to now. And the various subcategories. When I add up those subcategories, for example, up there, so we can put up the other document so everybody can follow what I'm saying. The comparison. Yes, that one. Yep. All right, on the bottom line there. So when you add up, the June column is 11,135,000. Right? So when you add up the 3 pages, it comes to 16,624,955. The documents that we saw last meeting had 27 million and 33 million.
So when I was putting together the numbers, it's not the full presentation. So the page 1 is really just the perimeter of this gymnasium right here.
Okay.
So that $11 million is just for the gym. Then the second page, the locker room, was converting the elementary school locker room into team rooms.
Right.
And then we had the odd scope. So things that are not included in that comparison is the corridor finishes, it's the BCS.
But I'm not even at the detail level, Kyle. I'm just adding up 11,135,000, 4,650,000, and 839,000. All right, those 3 numbers add up to 16,624,955.
Mhm.
But we saw the presentation 2 weeks ago that said 27,678,000 or 32,930,000. One of them has an $11 million difference. Another one has $16.3 million. What are we missing? What's not included?
It's all the remainder of the scope.
Oh.
It's the remainder of the scope. So you have the secured vestibule, you have your dust collector, you have $1.7 million in BCS. You have the corridor improvements, the tunnels, dehumidification, addressing that moisture issue. You have all the elementary school UPK items or the art room, music room, whichever option you looked at. But it's all those additional scopes that don't really have a comparison because they're either brand new or the exact same from the previous project.
Yeah, so the 3 items that Kyle underlined right there, those are the ones that we did a deeper dive into comparison work on, and that's what you see in the spreadsheets. The other stuff is, I don't know if the numbers have changed, but they are what they are.
Okay.
There's really no digging into what was different from January.
The intent of the comparison was just to show how we've revised the design this spring. So I was looking at, the areas that went under the most BE, scope reduction. So I targeted the high school gym, the team rooms and the yard.
Okay, all right.
Before we continue, just because we do have new board members, we do have new people to in the room. If we could just have the constructions team introduce themselves and just with kind of just a brief description of your role, that would be wonderful. You want to start, Ted?
Sure. Ted Mountain, as the older manager, I'm the principal, with the firm and been working with John Steele for many, many years now.
Pat Wobster, I'm with SCI Design Group and I'm the project manager.
Jason Hannon, I work with Campus. I'm a director of project development. I oversee our estimating department.
Mark Deal, President of Campus Construction Management Group.
I'm Gary Huffman with Campus. I worked with Brock on the capital project we just did for the elementary school gym. And auditorium work and music suite that we did here in the last couple of years.
Brock Cuddeback, Senior Project Manager, Campus. I oversee day-to-day operations, report back to budgetary.
Another question?
I'll get into them.
Okay.
I only had an hour to look at it, so I.
Gotcha.
My math was the same as yours.
Yeah.
But what I didn't see in these was the secure entrance, which I recall 1.1 mil or. So
Yeah,
is it, so is 16,664, 955 the number or not? What's the number?
Right now, the numbers from the previous presentation you guys saw at the last board meeting are the two options with everything in.
Okay.
Yeah.
27.7 and
Yep.
30.
Then what was option 1A or 1B?
33.
Yes.
Okay.
So that has everything that's been discussed from the needs assessment that happened over the past 5 months since we had the vote on January 30th. Over the last 4 to 5 months, this group has been diving into the needs assessment, the BCS, and really trying to put a project scope back together. And we got back to the kitchen sink at this point with everything that's been discussed and wanted outside of that. And I think in our discussions with the OACM team was we're back at the situation with a fully loaded project. And would this get supported by the community? If not, do we need to start rebuilding what this project needs to be from needs and then to wants assessment? And is there a base project scope? And is there proposition opportunities? Is one of the discussions that's really come that we're looking now for the board to provide that input and the guidance on how do we want to start structuring that project, knowing there'll be a vote date going forward sometime in the fall and how to start building.
So is it possible to structure a vote kind of giving separate propositions available to the public, but word it in a way that if several propositions pass, they could be lumped together so that we could receive cost savings as far as, construction?
So typically when we see a project, and Ted, Kyle, the rest of the team jump into, when we see a project get put together, there is a base project that the voters would vote on. If you want to bring in a proposition for it, the base project would have to pass. Even if you passed a prop, it would not go because the base project would not pass. So just passing props, the verbiage on that is the base project would have to be part of that. And then any props would also have to be voted for approval.
So say if we chose to the gym project as the base project and then added, additional.
Correct.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add to what Mark said is that normally what we see is the base proposition is the essential piece of the project that you want to have done, and it's usually a bigger portion. Like we usually don't see proposition 1's 2 million, proposition 2 is 18 million. So that's typically how we see it done. And then we also see, and we've had a lot of discussion with this with legal and stuff like that too, of not having too many additional propositions. So usually there's only 1 or 2. You don't have like 6 or 7 because it gets too confusing. And then which ones get picked in which order if they happen to. So normally it's 1 or 2. And those 1 or 2 are typically something that might be more controversial, or it might be, you don't know if you're going to have the support for it. So you set it up as a separate thing and you see what the community decides on. A very good example of that would be a $20 million renovation projects in the building. And maybe it's a you know, a controversial site project or a field or something. And so let's just see what the community thinks about that. And we need to do this stuff in the building. And then just let that go and see what happens.
I think it also is another driving force is the tax impact that would come with the proposition. I mean, that's something I know we have to talk about. It's going to be very influential in this conversation. And it's just something that the more that we continue to add, the more of a tax impact that's going to be there. That I think we heard some of that feedback was for some of the no votes in the last in January. And we do have thresholds that fiscal advisors has looked at us of studying a 5, 10, 15, $20 million project and what that impact would be, with the majority of it being aidable work. But I think from what I heard in some of our meetings is kind of, I think for this group would be what is number one priority, and start kind of prioritizing the large scopes of work to say, when we get to that $10 million mark, this is the tax impact. Is that something that we could also deal with? I mean, keep on adding that work. Does it get to 15 million? Do we get to 20 million? And at what point do we feel like that threshold is starting to unbalance the seesaw type situation? Would be the recommendation for this group to start thinking about that. And I know just being around the conversations and the structural work that had to get put into the gymnasium, that is something that every single year right now we're being inspected by structural engineers to make sure that it is usable. But it's just at what point does that opportunity not still going to be there? And I think that's, from my vantage point, of something that has to get addressed within this project scope. I think, and talking with Scott and Cindy, it might be number one priority on behalf of the district to make sure we have a user.
I mean, clearly, it's what our number one priority is, and what's going to shut us down. And that's the gym and a couple of other items there. That's the base.
Mhm.
Breaking that out and looking at that as an individual proposition may be the right answer.
When you say proposition, you're talking about having other things as the base, or that being the base project itself? And then,
My opinion is that's the base project, but, and I think that's based on the feedback I've heard. As you go through this, there is something else that I'm not aware of, or we're not aware of, that is critical. Maybe the base grows a little bit, but
and I think you're going to
not a
see,
significant amount.
I think you're going to see that. I think the second item that we talked about, outside of the gym being number one priority, number two priority was the secure entrances, or secure entrance for the building, was what one of the discussions having amongst the group. And I think that was one of the things we wanted to hear that feedback. And then the number three item was replacing the second boiler, because the emergency boiler was going to replace the first one. Am I in line still?
Yep.
And I think at that point that was the needs. And when we started looking at that, you're starting to grow to that 18 range project. And let's start talking about that fiscal seesaw situation of what makes sense and what can we get support. And then it would be what could be the next prop and what would be that next piece. Because I know the auditorium is a very large spot. And then also you have, you're talking about program driven materials and that are needs. And I think that was really that discussion of, could one of those or both of those be props? And do we think that they would help bring that support for the project? Knowing if you're going to put a lightning rod out there that could be controversial, you would be bringing no votes and without clearly communicating the difference between the base project and what props are, and that you're going to be bringing some people out there, you may be bringing no votes to your table, that they're just going to vote no when they show up. I think historically, there's a section of the community, no matter what vote the school district puts up, I think it's like 210 no votes show up every single time you guys put a vote up. And there's nothing, that's the community, and that's the nature of it. You need to beat it by one.
So does it make sense to go through the items here, and I'll just pick on one, the secure main entrance, is that the same exact cost as it was in January?
Well, it's the
No
same
material- no
design,
Material differences?
same design.
Same
Did not
design,
change.
but cost. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so some of them will be straight like that, other ones, like, it's up to you guys, but I was thinking we can go through each item, obviously, and some are more, some are more complicated than others. And so the ones that are underlined, that Kyle underlined, like the high school gym, the team rooms and the auditorium, we have the additional sheets that we can hand out. You have some of that stuff. We could go through that in more detail, make sure that the scope is understood, if there's any questions. You know, I think those are gonna take a little bit longer to just talk through. Some of them might be fairly quick, like the second one, the site enhancements, it's 1.4 million. What is it? Do you guys understand what it is? And do we need it? Do we wanna scale it back? And then, you know, we're just interested in giving you guys as much information as we can about each item and getting some feedback on where you think we want to be. And then I think we, you know, we could potentially go back after this meeting and put together a, you know, a new set of, this is what, you know, maybe the base profit, which is what potentially the added profit is, that kind of thing. To get some really more concise recommendations for July for you. But, I'm fine going however you want to do it, but I was just gonna go in order essentially.
Fine.
You know, and I do think, Ted, that there is information that we want to make sure that with the design elements that are in what we propose, that everyone has a very clear understanding of what does the high school gymnasium reconstruction mean? What does the team rooms mean? What does auditorium backup house? So I do think
Right.
maybe passing out your materials and we'll go from there.
Yep, and I think just, these are just copies of what Kyle's got there. And I know it was discussed last board meeting with the timeline presentation with the potential of like an October vote. The board will need to make a resolution by the end of August for that purposes. And we know, our team knows that we have a lot of work in front of us for the month of July and going into August to really tune this in and hone it into what a project scope would be. So we have the communication materials to be able to use for the community. And if we're not ready for that October vote, it would be something that we could look at in November or December. Just knowing that there's an election this year, November is going to be very hectic a little bit with an election, so it might be an October or December type situation. So we'll be looking at it different. We have two different timelines that we could utilize for that. But again, this is the preliminary discussion that we wanted in a group, so we could have everybody have a good understanding what's in it and why the numbers are falling the way they are. So ultimately, this group is what goes back out to the community because you're supporting a project, and we want to make sure that word gets out in that same capacity.
So is it okay? Let's start with the gyms.
Yep.
Well, a couple more.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
I have an extra one. Do we need more?
I've got mine here.
Here.
I'm good here.
The exact same thing and go through on the sheet. So Jim? All right, let's do it. In general, in the gym, I just wanted to mention, you know, we have done tons of options for this. The three that I think are worth talking about is the base design of just replacing the wall in kind. And we had, I don't know if we have those numbers, but my recollection is that was somewhere around 7 or 8 million for just replacing the walls and doing the required work to fix the problem with the structural issues.
And that also had removing of the floor. Yep. And that was a requirement also. So
Yeah,
there's
sort of like a bare bones base project. Kyle's showing it right there. So we have plans for all this stuff. The second one is the one that we talked about that was part of the January vote. And that was, you know, that was closer to the 14 million. That's on your comparison sheet. So the first page, right, Kyle, at the bottom has the 14 million in the left column. Right here. Yep. So that's what that sheet is comparing, but that was a different project and it was a more expensive project. So this is a plan that shows what we were trying to do there. We were taking the existing locker rooms, which are at the bottom, and we were moving them to the top essentially. And then we were creating a new gym space with the space that was left over, and we had bleachers on both sides. And we know where that, that price number came in at about 14. And so the new design, which we talked about at the last meeting, is something that we tried to work with campus to come up with a solution that would meet the needs, but also be less costly. And so that is this design where we are renovating the locker rooms, but we're not moving them. So you still have boys and girls at the bottom where the existing boys locker room is. And then you have the gymnasium and the rest of it. And that gymnasium plan allows for less structural impacts, less cost, less impact to the existing, and it still provides with very good seating capacity and the ability for an additional gym station, which is showing up on, yeah, that's showing your existing locker room.
So there's existing columns here that go from gym floor up to roof deck. And in the January vote, this whole area was being blown out to make room for storage, additional bleachers, and new stair tower. To save money because there was going to be some structural steel, we're leaving this as is. And on the lower level, the boys' locker room is being reconfigured, but this stair tower is remaining, this stair tower is remaining. This becomes a new corridor. This space gets subdivided into 2 locker rooms, boys and girls. And then the girls' locker room up here gets blown out, and that becomes ancillary or additional gym space. It's not large enough for a full-size basketball court, but it can fit a competition volleyball court.
So Kyle, I tried to look at the differences between January
Yeah.
and June, and that, I think what you're just describing is what's referred to as an additional court area.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then the demo bleachers is the other difference between that and that. In terms of
Right.
addition, there were some others that were.
So we were in the January design, existing bleachers were remaining. We were building additional bleachers here, so you're going to have bleachers on both sides of the basketball court. During our meeting with the athletic department, they said they want spectators on one side, coaches, players on the other side, but they also still want additional seating capacity. So you can see we made the bleachers a little bit wider to pick up a few extra seats. We actually added a few rows, so we pushed the court plan north a little bit, and then we reduced the aisles. Your current staff has, I believe, 3, and we went down to 2. So we tried to accommodate both requests.
And if you go to the PE setup, which is on the right, that's your during the day physical education ability to, if you think about that area from the locker rooms all the way to the top of the orange, that's all 2-story space. So that can be opened up and used for multiple different things as one giant space, no columns, no second floor issues. It would be tall space, just like your gym now. But then you also have the ability on those dotted lines that look like a T there to do curtains and have 3 separate gym stations. And that was kind of the, I think that was the good aspect of this design, is that it saved money, but it added some additional program opportunities without, coming up with additions and other problems that we had before with the cost of adding space to the building. So again, like Kyle said, that 3rd gym station, it's not a full basketball court. He's showing that's the mezzanine right
So
now.
there are columns here, but they support the mezzanine. They don't go all the way up to the roof. And the reason why is there used to be bleachers right here. So that's why we can demo this without impacting the structural steel of the roof.
So that, if you go back to that design for the extra gym station, it's not a basketball court regulation size. It is a modified basketball court that could be used for practice. You're not gonna get 3-point shots on the side, but you can shoot free throws, you can run up and down the court, you could have a full-size volleyball court on there, you can use it for 100 other different PE station items, anything that needs full height too. So again, if they want to play badminton in there, pickleball, a number of different things, and it's a 3rd station. So to Mike's point, if you go back to the comparison, what Kyle tried to do with this is show you, and that's the handout that you have, the first page, show you the differences between that referendum design and the current concept design, what changed. And basically the things that changed is what made up the cost difference of it going down by about 3 million. And I don't know if we have to, I don't know if you want to walk through each item, but I think you picked up on
Yeah.
basically the kind of big ticket items that are the differences.
I mean, there was, what's there now versus then is existing first floor team room. Area remains.
So in the January design,
Yeah, that's an important one. So let's talk about that really quickly.
because we were blowing this floor out to accommodate bleachers, that eliminated the existing team rooms on the first floor. And then
It
we
was a
need,
costly, you know, that was a costly item. So
so to compensate for that, we were constructing new team rooms on the mezzanine plan north.
So those existing team rooms and the new design remain.
Correct.
yeah, so the goal was to try to at least have,
So this would be the first floor.
at least have 2 PE locker rooms, which you have now, but they're bigger. But we wanted to end up with 2 because locker rooms are being used less these days. So we don't think we need as much space for the PE locker portion. So that goes, if you follow through the differences, that goes where the existing boys locker room is. The 2 team rooms on the upper floor remain that we were just talking about. There's no difference there. They just stay and get reused as team rooms. And then the 2 elementary locker rooms on the lower level get renovated into team rooms. So in the end, with this design, the $11 million design, you have a boys' PE locker room, a girls' PE locker room, and 4 team rooms is what you end up with. And that was kind of what we got out of the master plan and the interviews with the staff for what would be needed.
So can you walk me through the comment about the locker rooms being used less?
Sure. Do you want to go to the plan?
Sure.
Right now, the boys' locker room is at the bottom of the page, right here. And first of all, we feel like there's some inefficiencies in there. Showers aren't used as much, so we're taking huge shower rooms that are, you know, the size of this entire portion of the building. And we're turning them into like 2 single showers for either pool, which you wouldn't need because you already have pool locker rooms. But somebody that wanted to shower, or maybe we have a 1 stall shower and an ADA shower. That's like where all our designs are going. So we feel there's less need for that. Also, the feedback we're getting from a lot of districts and also from our interviews is that kids are not changing as much. So if they don't change and they just go to the gym, they're not needing a full street locker.
So they're not changing it because they're not being allowed to. Right, like that's been kind of a problem in my view. Is that's something that we need to get back to, change, so that the new design allow, you know, students enough space to change for PE class and enough privacy to accommodate students that require that.
Yeah,
There
so
will
this
be-
is the concept design of the new. So you see, instead of where the boys' locker room wasn't spread out, you had more bathrooms and stuff. This is the concept for the new locker room. And it's got, you know, a number of lockers on the boys and girls side.
If we proceed with this design, we're going to want to work closely with the gym teachers to understand, do you need showers? If you need showers, how many showers are ideal?
Are there any
There
toilets in
there
this
will be
design?
toilets in there.
Okay.
So this was a very rough stab, but yes, there will be toilets, probably a coach's office and probably a small storage room.
So are the PE teachers and the athletic department satisfied with losing the storage that was in the space? Because that compensated elsewhere in the design?
So we can certainly fit storage in here that meets their current space. So right now, they have this small room for storage,
And then there's another room.
this one.
No, in the first part. Up on the left
What's this room here?
of the boys' locker room.
Over here.
No, over to the left.
Right here.
That space. This is
There's a storage room.
I believe that's the coach's office.
Yes. Is
The
that
main
other
gym.
space storage? Well,
So I believe this is
middle one?
showers, which might be
Maybe it's storage, I don't know.
this storage. Cause that's often what happens. And same thing over here. But once we get into schematic design, if the project's approved, we'll dive into the details. We're not gonna have everything worked out at this stage of the game.
Well, you can make note of that.
yes.
Yeah, and there's plenty of space for, like, if you had, during the day, the key would be you would have one class in each of those three sections doing some activity. So, you know, that could be however many people, it'd be 50 or whatever. We would certainly have plenty of space for that. And then I think the other thing is as Kyle said, once we get into the design, we're gonna be designing the team rooms too. Team rooms can flex and we might be able to fit some storage rooms in those as well. Because you do have the pool locker rooms as another option for teams. A lot of other school districts use those pool locker rooms, not just for pool functions, but you know, after school, if a team has to go there and change, you have that space available. So I think there will be a lot of flexibility with the design.
And are those across from the newer gym?
Yeah, if you scroll out, you'll see they're wedged between the pool and the new gym right there. They're kind of landlocked right in the middle, but adjacent to the new gym and right next to the pool. So some of this is like, I know you guys, it's a tough decision, but it's kind of like a value decision too, of what makes the most sense for the dollars. And I think that the latest design that we came up with is a good balance of not just rebuilding your gym and coming in and at the end, it's the same thing basically. And everybody's like, what did you do? Well, it's not gonna fall down on anybody. But, you know, you'd like to do, for what I think, and Kyle and I were talking about the other day, like to go to 8 to 11 for the 3 million, I think you're getting a lot of value out of that 3 million in getting some new program space, a bigger gym, some expanded gym capacity, getting the team in locker rooms to where, you know, we felt from the feedback they needed to be, and, you know, potentially adding some more enhancements in terms of what the gym looks like. Of course, there'll be new graphics, new equipment, and you're gonna have the elevator, which we haven't talked about, in the corner, which is part of the design to provide a little better accessibility than your existing elevator over by the boiler room. So, you know, that's, again, if we go to the $14 million, there's some advantages to that, but there's also some disadvantages. So it's kind of like weighing all the options. But, you know, we think this is a good, solid spot to target.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? And what I'm hearing, just barring any other questions, is the 11.1 million with potential to revisit some change in space and storage space. Those are relevant.
And it's important to note that that 11.1 is an all-in number. So
Yeah.
you're not talking about, oh, we gotta add for contingency, we gotta add for design fees and all that stuff. It's an all-in number. You know, if you guys decided that was the way you wanted to go after tonight, we would start that as would be the base project essentially. And we would go up from there.
Does that solve the wall problem?
Yes.
And that includes the floor, you said removing the floor, all of that. is
Yep.
part of
So it would be a new floor. That whole existing floor would be taken out for mercury issues. New wood floor, yep, maple floor. Probably, you know, we could be similar to the one that we just put in the new gym, but we would look at options for you guys. And then you would have replacement of all the structural issues and it's not insignificant. I mean, I know it sounds like a huge number, but you essentially have a very, very thin wall. I mean, you're talking about this thick. It goes up 30 feet. And it was, we did all the research on the existing drawings. It was meant to be tied back to the wall next to it, which holds up your outside wall. So you have like your outside wall, your inside wall. This was meant to be tied back to that with tons of ties, like every 2 or 3 feet. And we found from our structural investigation that it was, it was basically like, I think, 1 in 10 or something of the ties they put in. So it's a very, it's a very thin wall that goes up very high. And so to do that correctly, what we would do in a new building designed for a gym is you would have at least 8 inches there instead of 4. It might even be 10. And then when you come down, you're gonna land on that concrete slab that's there that's only being supporting this right now. And we have to make modifications to the foundation to support that wall. So that's gonna have a lot of weight to it. And we just feel like that's the best long-term solution for you guys. And we'll use mortar instead of adhesive. So,
Just sort of
We
epoxy
got a
glue.
couple pieces of glue in our oven.
right, right.
Unbelievable.
So, knock on wood, we're talking about a 100-year gym here when we're done. And I think it's gonna be, not only safer and a long-term solution, but it'll have additional program benefit.
So one question I had is, you mentioned last meeting, we only did the gym, it's still gonna take 4 years?
No.
No, 2, okay, I misunderstood.
But there's some design time in there, so we've been talking about potential vote in the fall. If that happens, there's design time after that, after the vote passes, and then it's gotta go to SED. And then we start construction. The construction portion is 2 years.
Still 2 years.
So, yeah, we can't say, like, you're gonna open the gym in the fall of 26. It's not gonna happen that quickly. There's the one we threw up at the board meeting last time, was this kind of base schedule. Just to look at timelines.
Is a new roof a part of any of the gymnasium designs?
Not right now.
No.
Yeah, so the roof is something we looked at as part of the BCS, and it's something that we're gonna recommend to you guys to do in the next capital project. And we're not affecting the roof, so there's no need to take it down to replace it.
But why would we not do it right the first time and allow a roof to leak on a new floor? Why would we do that?
Well, the roof still has lifespan, and I'm not aware of, it's not like it's a leaky sieve. Now, you could say, I wanna protect my investment, and we could do just the roof over the gym. That would be something we haven't looked at yet. We'd have to just price it out and
Did
see.
you price that out as part of the BCS review yet, or no?
Yeah.
You haven't? So maybe we could at least
Trumco is out there, they
put that as an
investigated the
option
roof.
for this discussion.
Is the main gym,
Share my
has there been
thoughts.
leaking in that gym?
Maybe there is life in the roof up there, I'm not sure, but I haven't felt comfortable about the original design yet, so.
Right.
Yeah, we can easily take a look at that.
Trumco is out here, they surveyed the roof and they said it is a candidate for restoration,
Okay,
which is a fluid applied coating.
So not total demolition of.
Or is it like a flat roof, like a balloon?
Yeah,
Like-
it's a flat roof.
Okay.
And the nice thing about those restoration coatings is you don't have to remove the roof, and you don't have to remove the insulation under the roof, which is, again, if you've only had a couple leaks over the years, it's probably 1 to 2% wet. And they'll just cut that out and replace it, and then they do the coating over the whole thing, and it's more cost effective than taking all the thing down to the deck and then replacing insulation that's already dry that you're just gonna put in insulation on top of it again anyway, so.
And the life can be equivalent of a brand new.
Right.
The coating can.
And you can get, yeah, you get 20-year warranty
Right,
with it.
and it'll come with a warranty, it'll come
Oh,
with,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And essentially the same warranty and duration as you would if you tore it up and put a new one on. And then it's typically less money.
So structurally, that's sound for, it's not a issue of structure.
Oh, no. If anything, it benefits the structure because you're not adding weight to it, because if you do tear that roof off, and I'm getting an architectural man, but if you tear that roof off, they're gonna make you, state would probably make you increase the insulation on it for the energy code, but if you coat it, you don't.
Grandfathered in,
Grandfathered in, if you coat it.
We got, we're good, what we've got, and just.
The issue with the energy code is you have to add insulation, which now throws off your curbs for all your rooftop equipment.
Yep.
It's going to mess up the fascia, so we're going to have to add blocking and add fascia, so there's a substantial cost increase and labor increase for doing a full tear off. So restoration coatings, if the roof is capable of being coated, is the most cost effective solution.
100%. And you get the same duration warranty.
But should we need to replace it, I'm here. That will be costly.
If you have to replace it outright and put a new roof system on. It would be what, I'm sorry?
Costly.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's something like 2 to 3 times the cost, I think, in general terms of the coatings. I mean, it's a lot more to replace the whole thing.
Holy shit.
We'll get a number for that for the next discussion about how to add that and see what the financial impacts are for it.
Show you what coating costs and what a tear off and replace looks like, so you have the comparison.
Is that enough for the gym or are there other questions?
There, sorry, just to piggyback off the roof comment, we do have a line item for BCS allowance, so maybe that's where the roof slides in. I don't know the cost of the roof for that area, but it would be a BCS item.
Yeah, it might not be a full adder because I think as we said at the last meeting, that's not fully defined. That's an allowance right now. And we want to go through the BCS list with Aaron and actually define what we recommend to you guys to do with priority 1 BCS. And if it doesn't come up to that much, we might be able to add the roof in for the gym and not see a huge, add there. I don't know. It might
And
be-
just for the non-construction people in the room, BCS is a
Sorry.
building
Oh,
condition
right.
survey.
Yes.
They're required every 5 years and that identifies any maintenance needs of our building.
Thank you for setting up this.
I know Kevin's looked at the previous BCS and said that, I guess roof was not included previously.
in the
in the
one in
2020.
2019.
The warranty is expiring in the next few years, so it's coming due. I believe it's 2026.
Next round of the BCS, then this one coming up for replacement on that one, but in 2020, it still had a life expectancy of X amount of time frame, so it had a lower rating, so it didn't finish in a high number to be until the radar at this point in time. But now with the tear down of the gym and the replacement, the 2 options, and you're looking at a restoration coating, I think is the term you use, versus a complete tear off. I would like to think that everybody at the table would want to explore that option. Find the cost for it.
We'll give you both options.
Yeah.
Good, your decision.
Is there anything happening with climate control equipment in the gym? Like, is there just existing heating? There's not air conditioning?
Not air conditioner for large.
I think we priced out new air handlers.
What do you
Yes.
see in other schools?
So new air handlers. We don't typically air condition gyms. What do you think, Mark? 10%? 15%? We don't air condition most gyms.
It all just matters.
Becoming more common. It's becoming more common because some will consider it a gathering space.
But the 11 million includes air handling. New air handling equipment.
But not air conditioning.
It would have air changes, it would have better control of the air and so forth, but not air conditioning.
Just to move stale air out pressure,
Yeah.
just to change it, heating.
Ventilation,
Yeah. It doesn't have a choice, or it's not an air conditioning.
Yeah, because there's a humidity issue.
It was Cindy answered that question of yours in an email regarding that it's shut down and not used.
Correct, yeah, so because of the EPC, we have to follow the energy guidance to have
There's no students.
correct. Yep, we're at a much lower use, very low efficiency.
So even though there's teams using, it doesn't matter.
I think you can override it. I think he just needs to know when those practices are occurring. So there's an override to that EPC system. It's just, I think, informing him of when those are actually occurring so that he can turn it on and then schedule to turn it on.
But I'm not an EPC expert, but part of the process is following their guidelines. So that we receive the savings on the efficiencies that they put in the district. And so if we were to continually override their recommendations, we would see
So this is part of the concept. Yes.
the energy performance contract.
Gotcha.
think we're good.
Okay, that's one of the biggest ones, so let's do a little bit quicker one, probably the site enhancement. So you see that's 1.4 million. So we wanted to show you now, Kyle didn't do a more in-depth dive into that one. It is what it is. So we want to show you what that is, and then maybe there's some discussion about we scale it back or we don't do it. There's a huge staircase that was designed and shown in the rendering on the hill to help, people get up and down essentially without walking down the slope. And I don't know if there's anything else within that number, maybe some sidewalks.
Sidewalks, retainers. Yeah, that stairwell.
So in the January design, when we moved the team rooms above the mezzanine, we were utilizing the stair tower to get teams down and out to the Field of Dreams. So I almost dumped them right out into the parking lot. Well, adjacent to the parking lot. In the new design, we're utilizing the existing team rooms. So right now, athletes would have to go to this corridor and down these stairs and out, the nice stairs that we just built, or they have to go outside and walk down the grassy hill, which isn't the end of the road. It was just an idea to give them a more direct route that was sort of controlled.
So
Again, that's something where you
They
might
would-
say 1.5 million.
so they,
Might not be.
that
worth it.
upper doorway is where, that's the corridor that
Right,
you're
yeah,
talking
exactly.
about.
So they would come out here, if they were heading down to the Field of Dreams, down these steps and we'd have a connecting sidewalk. We're in the January design, we were renovating the stair tower. And they could just come right out.
But they can just go down the hallway.
Downstairs.
That's the existing.
And they go out that doorway now and come right.
And that's one of those items that becomes a program related item, and is it a need or is it a want? And is it a convenience factor of, would it be awesome if it could be happening, but is that something that you would have to really have a base project around? Yeah.
Someone like that door. They don't need to go out that door. That's an emergency, and only door. They can go out the door. Existing.
I don't know if there's much else with that item. It is,
No,
kind of is
it
what it
was
is.
just, you have athletes with cleats on, they have mud, they're tracking mud through the corridor, so how do we get them outside faster? But that was the only reason for that idea.
It's a lovely design. We are a very simple.
Understood.
Is there a way to get the mud off at the other door? I guess.
Well, if they're going to turn, what butter are we talking?
So, yeah, I don't know, but I think we probably do it.
You're not wrong, there is walk-off carpet that's abrasive that would help remove any debris from the bottom of cleats or shoes.
This may be one of those items that we put off to
You can-
the side.
And it's always, it's something that can always be built later.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like it's
Right.
building out the gym.
Right.
And this is gonna be your only chance of making this decision. If it comes around after the project is over, that this is something that could be added on. So thinking about that concept of a capital project, similar to your home. You'll be able to do some renovations. What could be the next project?
Nice and even not unnecessary.
Right.
All right, so we're minimizing.
So the next one,
No, I'm not.
the next one is the team rooms in the current elementary school locker rooms, and there is a deeper dive on your sheets with that. And I'll go to the fourth one. It's just so we can talk about, what the differences were between the two and, we think it's pretty important from what we've heard for program reasons. But essentially the difference is that in the January design, it was kind of like, I'm brushing it over too quick, but we were redesigning the whole space inside. We were gutting it and we were redoing it. And in the new design, we're simply keeping the existing layouts and the existing fixtures, and toilet fixtures are very expensive to move. So again, we were trying to look at from the January, what can we do to make this still usable as team rooms, but not as expensive? So when you see the two colors there, there's kind of like a dark and a light. The light is the existing. And so the thought would be to, you know, we might have to replace some fixtures in kind right where they are. That won't require a lot of plumbing, maybe some finishes, and then some locker room or lockers that you see in the dark colors. And they can be used, you know, there's no issue why they couldn't be used easily as team rooms. So that's the difference between the two and where we ended up with. And that line item is really isolated to that one line you see on the summary in this space.
You know where we are with the longevity of the plumbing? Yeah.
I don't know, top of my head, we can have the line scoped and inspect the lines, and that could be a part of the investigation process for the CIP.
Yeah, so you have sanitary lines. This is on the lower level, so you're not above. So this is under the slab buried. Sanitary lines to pick up the fixtures and also floor drains. And, you know, typical lifespan for that is anywhere between 60 and 100 years. And it's just hard to say, well, what type of pipe did they use and did they backfill it right and all that kind of stuff. Normally we get concerned when you go all over the school and you see problems with that happening, like drains are getting plugged up because they're not sloped right. But we haven't heard about anything in this area for that.
Well, you found the gym wall, so just want to be prepared.
Yep, yep. But it's a good point. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea to scope out those lines and just see. We can obviously visually inspect all the water supply lines that are above the ceiling. But the subsurface lines, we can't do much unless we scope them out.
So,
I'm just looking at the number again, on this sheet, it says 1,492,000. And these sheets, it's 839.
So since,
Went down.
yep, since the discussion, since your last meeting last Monday or Tuesday, whichever it was, we did get together and look at decreasing some of the scope there, because in the needs assessment, it stated renovation. So it was kind of basically the same as it was in January. And then we took a look at it with SEI and we reduced it down to what Ted just described as lockers, finishes, you know, maintaining the existing infrastructure there and just kind of freshening it up.
Yeah, so if you go back to the summary from the PowerPoint real quick, because that's what Mike is noticing. You know, let's say the board was to accept, you know, the first one and the third one. You would be adding to the 11 million, you'd be adding the 800 that you see today. So that wouldn't be as much of an impact if the board said, yes, we want to do the team rooms as the 1.4. So that just, you know, gives you a little bit more space to fit some other things in potentially.
2 home runs. Cole's gonna be a little
So the next
frustrated.
one is the quarter renovations. And I think the best way to look at that is probably on, oh, there it is, magically just appeared, and it's tiny too. The 1.4, about 1.4 million for quarter renovations. So I think it's important for everybody to understand what that is. And, you know, if there might be potential opportunities to scale it back and not do as much quarter enhancement as we're showing right now. So Kyle's just fixing the.
It's in the audit as well. The same thing happened with that since our last meeting. So that number, this number is off as of this juncture. We've updated that estimate. And it's currently 25,888,000.
And I think that just goes to show that we're continuing to work and develop these plans. This is a conceptual process that we're working through and trying to get it honed to the best of our ability. And
So can we go to the plans for the total, Kyle?
Yeah.
Would be associated with that 1.4 million, just to understand where those dollars are being spent on.
That'd be the quarter outside the gym. Let's see if I have an overall plan.
I think those plans you had today showed more corridors and things.
You're right.
So it's the tunnel, it's the corridor. It's running plan east-west. It's this egress corridor. Be the corridor next to the gym and then part of the tunnel. So I took campus's estimate, I combined all the corridor numbers into one line item. But again, we don't have to do all of them. We can select certain corridors.
What is it we're doing?
So, explain what the renovations would be.
Lights are done.
So in this tunnel, there's humidity issues. We think the humidity is coming up through the slab. So it'd be to,
Oh, no, I think, so we're in the tunnel.
so it'd be to remediate the slab, put down appropriate finishes. Out here, we're going to have to excavate so that we can increase the width of the footer for the new CME walls. So there's gonna be floor that's going to be disturbed. That's gonna have to be replaced. And then one of the comments that came out of the meetings with the admin team and the district staff is this is not pedestrian friendly. It feels like a backup house area. So if we have someone who is disabled that is going down a freight elevator, then is going down the dark hallway that has no finishes, it's painted floors, it's painted concrete walls, is that really an appropriate way to treat them? So is there a way that we can elevate the finishes so that they don't feel like they're in the back of house area?
And then on the upper floor, there's corridor finishes too that are part of that 1.4. But Kyle points out two distinctive things. If you were to look at a typical corridor, I think it was finishes, more or less, floor finishes, wall finishes. But when you get to specific areas like the tunnel, it probably was a little bit more enhancement. You know, maybe there'd be some ventilation or some, you know, ceilings. There's no ceilings in there now, so those types of things, and then the humidity in the tunnels. But for a typical corridor, you have, you know, floor finishes and wall finishes. And again, on both floors, do we need to do all of this entire area? We don't have to. It was just, you know, the way it got priced out for this iteration. So, you know, you could come back and say, let's just do what we have to do by the gym, the humidity issues in the tunnel, and then, you know, that number would be reduced eventually. I don't know if there's anything on the upper floor that we should talk about or no, not too, oh, it's mostly on the lower level.
Yeah, the previous iterations from January had us doing the upper floor as well along the gym for corridors, but that has since been removed.
If you go to the lower level, so if you go over here, everybody notices like this whole hallway, right? Right here. So B172, we have money against that, Jason has money against that for enhancements. And that's, you know, that's kind of a decision that we could make potentially to scale back. In the same vein as the stair outside that was very expensive, we could start with a minimal number, and then even within this project, it might be possible to put in some additional corridors if, you know, the money's available during the project. Or it could be done in the future. Again, it's not something that you're having to redo anything. It's just maybe it's either not picked up in this project, or if it is, if the bids come in good, or if we have contingency money, and maybe you want to concentrate on the tunnel and the humidity perhaps. So, you know, those are just ideas that I have about that item, but it is a large item, so it's worth talking about. 1.4 million.
I'll just speak for myself here, but certainly the tunnel and the mold and everything down there, and whether it's ventilation, humidity control, the floor and wall finish, and anything associated with accessibility, I think is a good thing to include.
It's definitely a health, it's a health.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
goal.
Yeah, the whole thing is, right? That
Yeah,
whole
it's,
area.
it's very,
Do we use, is it storage
there's
area?
a ton of storage.
Yeah, that's probably the secondary question, but what do we do with all the stuff that's stored there right now?
Temporary pole barn inside.
Still value, 25.
Is there any consideration for, wasn't there? That,
No, we're gonna do that locally because that needs
Okay.
to be done sooner than later. We don't wanna wait.
gotcha. Okay, so we're gonna address
You're
it.
talking about the school,
Yes.
something area that,
Yeah.
so burn meaning kind of retention,
A retention,
Yeah.
concrete retention.
kind of like the gas tanks.
Abutment, the water coming down the corridor.
Containment,
Yeah.
we call it a containment.
Good word, yes, good
Right.
word. Concrete containment. Nice, that area.
Again, insurance against,
Good thing.
you know, disaster.
And, you know, the comments are good, like the priorities when we do, you know, if we have BCS here for a district and it had 700 items and we're trying to prioritize it, we would always prioritize safety and basically keeping your existing building watertight would be the top items. And then after that, you get program enhancements and renovations and replacement of things that are ending their life. And then at the bottom is unfortunately aesthetics. But you know, that would be one way to think about those corridor enhancements potentially. The next one is probably one of the biggest ones we need to dig into, besides the UPK, which is the auditorium. And you can see that Jason has updated that number a little bit lower. So that's one of your other comparisons on the sheets. And what Kyle tried to do was just, again, look at the design from January and the new design that we came up with now. And what were the differences so you can understand, you know, what we were trying to do. And then, you know, it did end up coming down by about $1 million, but it's still a big number. So, you know, in general, the cost of this is in the renovation and enhancements that we're trying to make to the back of house with adding an entire floor in for storage. Some of the other things are, you know, still expensive, but not as big ticket items. And I would think the best thing to do would be if Kyle just walk through it really quickly.
Could I ask, what was the input in the needs analysis? What were they specifically asking for and so on?
Storage, egress. Were some of the bigger ones that came up.
We have some items against the stage, some stage, you know,
Yes.
stage floor, stage shell, the shell. But, you know, we've always been struggling with this back of house of this corridor, you know, hallway mixing with storage and scenery shop and stuff. And so that came up again, but I think what we heard in general, and everybody doesn't agree, but I think what we heard is that that doesn't have to be a main entrance. That can be an exit. And, you know, we had a lot of money against that entrance to try to make it like the new public entrance to the auditorium. And that's one of the biggest changes that was made between January and this new design.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what you just said, Bobby, about that stairway on outside of the gym. It's a beautiful design. But it's, you know, is it something that we need? And at this point, it's, you know, it's not a need. Safety, to be able to safely egress the stage is a need.
We delayed the new concrete ramp.
That's the old design.
Yep. Reconstruct the exterior concrete stairs and widen the sidewalk. So all site work was removed. We had windows, we had a sunshade, we had elevated finishes because this was supposed to be a main entrance. All of that was removed. We had a new passenger elevator that was going to provide accessibility for anyone who's disabled entering, but it also is gonna provide a route from storage down to the scene shop, so it was a dual purpose elevator. And we had a ship's ladder to connect the scene shop to the storage room. So in the new design is now just an egress stair. And this elevator is really now just a glorified lift so that large band equipment doesn't have to go outside during the winter, down the sidewalk, in through the back doors and carry down the stairs. So it's really a bare bones egress, storage, circulation solution. But this still includes building a first floor for the storage. So you'd still have a new floor here that would have direct access from the two music rooms.
And so that's where a lot of the cost comes out of, building a steel structure within your existing building and having a concrete floor in there, doing other modifications to mechanical rooms and walls, to make that work, plus the stairs that have to be modified and so forth. I think it's still worth going through the sheet for the comparison, because there are some other things that the board could potentially decide, hey, let's do this instead of the whole thing. So yeah, let's go through this really quickly. You can see where the differences are based on the X's. But a lot of the stuff that Kyle just talked about at the top is things that came off from the outside entrance. So I don't think we need to go through that. That's a big difference. Let's go through maybe just some of these subtle X's where they are.
So line 2 is the lobby with enhanced finishes that was in the original design. Now it's simply egress corridor and interior stairs. We have to run the occupant load calcs to figure out how wide does that stair need to be. So we left it the same width that was in the original design, but there is an opportunity where maybe it will get not as wide, it would be reduced in size. Passenger elevator goes away and just turns into an equipment lift, so it's not meant for pedestrians, just equipment. Ship's ladder goes away, and then the rest of this stays the same for the most part. You'll have the back of stage area that could be a scene shop that will be used to construct sets, stage, props, supplies, equipment leading up to the performance, and that way it's not blocking the circulation path for egress. We would take the room that is currently being used for band storage and that would turn into a single occupant toilet room for performers. We would remove the acoustical shells because my understanding is they're difficult to use. They're metal structure with wood cladding on it. Those will be removed. And we'd go to a portable nesting shell for band performances and chorus performances. But because we're getting rid of those shells, we still need a way to screen performers during theatrical performances. So we would have to add legs and a rear curtain so that they could access the stage without being seen by the spectators.
So those last 3 or 4 items are really standalone items that could be, you know, the ones above, some of the ones above, like the elevator and having the upper storage area, that's integral to the big structural cost. But these other ones at the bottom, they could be, you know, added or deferred or whatever you guys would want to do. They're sort of standalone items.
Why not? Oh, go ahead.
What is the scene shop typically used for?
Constructing the scene.
Right now,
So who is that students doing it or that's?
We hire an actual scene. And actually, but I say that this year, Mr. Laughlin did work and built the scene with his class this year. It was
Used to be Roger Collins.
pretty good.
Now it's Jason Laughlin. I mean, I'm not knowledgeable enough, but I hear a lot that maybe the stage floor needs to be redone. I mean, I've heard it. Yeah. Yeah. Very important. And that should be a given.
and then you can see on the first floor, it's essentially XX. It's the same more or less, because it was the storage area. So there weren't a lot of changes there. We got rid of the window. So where it says there's no X for the window well for the current design, that was an enhancement we were adding to the exterior wall for the lobby for coming in, as making it an entrance. And so that went away. So that's really the only difference there.
Is this just replacing the curtains we have, or is this bringing new curtains?
So right now, there's just this wooden louvered panels in the back that kind of hide the back of the stage that are very cumbersome. People that use this space rather hate them.
Yeah. They're beautiful during concerts, but they are not user friendly.
It was my understanding is that they didn't originally move and that they've been kind of retrofitted to move.
So it's the red line. So right now, you have the door off the back of the stage, and then these panels block the spectator's view of the back area, so that allows performers to come around. And really, the space was designed to be a concert hall and not for drama productions. So we're trying to make it so that it fits all of the fine arts. That's not a one-trick pony.
So doing a curtain treat would
Really?
accomplish that. And then you were talking about the portable acoustic panels help it function for band and chorus.
Right, that essentially, that portable shell Kyle's talking about is essentially an acoustical shell that throws the sound out to the auditorium itself to make the sound better. Rather than having the sound get
Right.
wrapped up in the ceiling of the stage and lost.
And are those relatively durable?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different types you can get. The biggest company we deal with is Winger. And they have tons of different finishes and, you know, metal versus wood versus laminate that we could look at.
So, yeah, I mean, so if it's portability suggests movability, and so the need to store, where does the portable acoustic shell end up when it's not used? Because I often know you're getting rid of a storage closet. I don't know which storage closet, how important, how big. But
I think the storage closet was the bathroom. Am I right there?
Yeah.
So, and it either used to be a bathroom or. I'm not sure.
sorry, the January one had a line for construct storage closet, and that's now gone.
We can still tuck it in right here. There's also an opportunity to nest shells here, but this is a large space, and maybe we look at opportunities to subdivide that space and allocate some of it for storage and some of it for other program use.
Go back to the portable shelves then, right? But how are they fixed height? Is the like, are they also, they kind of like nest down?
Nest, yeah. Yeah, so what I typically see is that they get put into the back of the stage against the wall. You sit there. Auditorium, something, I think. Unless there's other question. You know, the big item.
Where are the musicians seated during performances?
And the yellow.
Then we'll go back to the elevated. Yeah.
How do they get up and down?
I think they usually create you find a ladder, they usually create a ladder. to go down.
Or just part of the. Way out the down. The original design of the current project had the remote pit. And possibility
It costs to do musicians in the band room with a one-to-one exact, you know, relationship between the sound reaching the audience from a remote location.
They gave up 2 home runs, but other than that, how they looking?
Very hard to sync up, so it's an expensive system. to do remote.
You can see the panels in the back going away and then you see the floor getting. Got in trouble the first.
So with this plan, say if something needs to.
Explore the one, but that's the new for the land law.
Base back of the house to do that.
So,
Under this new design?
Yeah.
also labor.
Yeah, it looks like he's struggling.
Depending on the size, it's obviously gonna be, it can move from floor to floor in the elevator, but if it's bigger than that, it would have to, yeah, it would have to fit through the existing stage area or the tunnel to get in there.
You gotta get your brand in there at some point.
Right. That's, yeah.
So however that got in, it's getting out.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the 15 designs we had, I don't know how many designs, on the left side of that scene shop, we had an access panel, which could still be part of it to get things in, because that scene shop there is not fully underground, it's only partially underground, and so we had some sort of way to get things in through there.
Yep.
But, you know, that would be, as we program the project and look at the design, that would be. Or could we get everything?
Trying to get squeezed in the first inning with the strike zone,
Yeah,
but like, he's not been told.
And it looks like.
You know, Clark Schmidt sometimes tries to nibble. Like,
And it looks like they tacked down onto like a rolling cart.
did you bring Mom's phone up there?
Yeah.
Who had called her?
So that would be.
Are you talking about the current? The current?
No.
Yeah, there's tons of different ways it can be done. They can nest, they can also fold.
Because I was picturing too, these humongous things of these big shelves, what are we gonna do? How can we store them? You know, but they fold right, looks like they fold right down into a little cart. But they don't fall on people, and they look pretty bad.
There's also an opportunity that maybe we could design the stairs so that there's space under it where if they are on a cart, you can push the cart in, leave the handle out, so you can just pull it out. And we can look at really maximizing the efficiency of the storage area. But that will get into schematic design, and we'll want to sit down with the program and create a list of everything they currently have, everything they are potentially going to purchase, and then design the space around that.
And nothing that you're proposing is gonna interfere with the work that you've currently done, correct?
That was the
Like the
plan,
lighting
so.
and
Yep,
all of that.
all reused, yeah, reused.
With the design that was proposed in January and then moving to this, that does eliminate some of the options that were put in that design by moving with this, or is everything that was in January could still be done in the future? Because we're moving the elevator location, you're changing that main entrance.
Yeah,
Concept.
it would be harder to say, like, we build this, and then in 5 years, you guys say, let's make this the main entrance.
So this.
Because we would have to then, you know, we could certainly add enhancements like a canopy and better finishes and things, but the elevator would be, you know, we're proposing a lift at the top of the page, more for the band room use, versus before we had an elevator down at the bottom that would accommodate somebody coming in that would need that elevator from the public side. So it would be trickier to do that in the future for sure.
Just so everybody has that understanding.
Yeah.
Then I guess I would ask the board, is this a want or a need? Type kind of conversation for the project? And if it was something that we feel could be a proposition, would the support come out for a proposition for the scope of work? I mean, those are the kind of, we're talking about one of the larger dollar areas of the project. So that was kind of the conversations of how large is our base project getting in the auditorium, and would a proposition for an auditorium draw the auditorium people to the voting booths to help support the overall project piece? Would be some of the questions I would bring to the board to put some thoughts behind. Not that I need answers, it's just, these are the kind of questions that help sculpt the project.
Let's talk about it, because I think it's a good question. Putting aside how many people it'll draw, just from my viewpoint, again, just myself, I think doing this work in the auditorium is a need. We've ignored it long. Now, is it the same kind of need? There's two needs. You know, the gymnasium is going to shut us down if we don't do something. We know that. So that's a need. priority one B is something in the auditorium.
Yeah, and I think this definitely has some health and safety components
Yeah.
attached to it, you know, with storage and egress, you know, I think those are definitely needs for the space. It's also, that space was supposed to be renovated with the current capital improvement project that had to be engineered out so that there was already appetite from the public to renovate this space. We're still not sure if the public understands that that work didn't get done, but they may have thought that. So I definitely think that there is an appetite out there in the public. I do think if we did put this as a separate profit would bring an enthusiastic crowd out for it. I think there's a large support for finance.
And you guys might talk about it and decide there's a hybrid, like it certainly makes sense. They could potentially do the items around the stage and the shelf and the curtains, that could be in the base prop. And then the entire rest of the project, which is the millions of dollars behind the stage, could be separate prop. So that at least if the second prop goes down, the first prop has some auditorium enhancements in it. So that's just something to think about of how it could be structured potentially.
And I just think about the prop side, because the communication can be, this prop is to push the auditorium. We need your support, we need this. So I'm just thinking about the different concepts about how to approach it.
I think part of the conversation of the prioritizing the auditorium and the work is when we look at mental health in schools. Arts, drama are places where you see it going up instead of down, and I think that's an important part of the conversation for that being a priority, along with the gym and athletics.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, it's a multi-use space. Or it's around the presentations, public presentations, and it has to function as the all-inclusive space too.
Can every student, regardless of physical, is participating in building of scenery and being a part of the pit for band, is that available for every student regardless of physical ability? Yeah. Could they get up there?
Are you saying, is that back corridor ADA accessible?
Yeah, is it accessible, that area, would it be?
So the back corridor is how anybody in a wheelchair accesses our stage.
Just that top hill.
Correct. I don't believe our pit, if we had a student
Right.
in a wheelchair, would be able to participate easily in that component.
The elevator, I know we don't want to have costs, but the elevator is what would make it that way. No, that still would go. Okay.
There's like a shop or elevator, coming in ground level, at the auditorium's up. And so that elevator is just gonna be to get people from, coming in from the outside up.
I see.
To the house levels.
The original design.
Yeah,
was
Kyle, if
making
you go
it
back to
fully
that old elevator,
Not going,
that would connect the vestibule you see there. So you'd be walking in from the outside on the left, right? You'd be coming from the outside through those two doors. You would be at a space quite a bit above the auditorium lowest level. So that elevator would get you down. And if Kyle follows it through this cursor, you'd be in the elevator, you drop down. Now that might be 12 feet. I don't know exactly. Then you'd be down. Then you'd be down at the, it's only 6.
Yeah.
So it's a 6-foot drop down to the lowest level of the auditorium. So it's not a foot, but it's not a full flight, a full, 12 or 14 feet either.
Bobby it was not up to that.
Wasn't it? I got it.
Yeah, if you actually think about it, I didn't think about it, but it's the difference between, if you go out that exit right now in the corner, between the top level and then start up those stairs. So that's not a very you know, that's whatever it is, 10 stairs or whatever, so
I was gonna put a storage room.
That was the idea.
connect to the storage also. So
Right.
it's a 3-stop elevator in the original design. The storage would be higher than the lobby where you walk in.
Right.
Did we cover the auditorium? Anything else?
Yep.
The next one's, well. Pretty easy. It's the $1 million secure entrance, so we have the plans for that. If you're not familiar, we showed it last time. But it's a plan we've been talking about for quite a while. It's been carried through for probably over a year. And that is, you know, this entrance, security area.
When we had that community forum, people were saying it was far too elaborate. Was this one then?
Yeah, and there was feedback on the posted survey.
I mean, the things I like about it that I think help you out, obviously, if you know or don't know, it would be deleting those tiers that are in there for waiting space. That's in the upper left corner. There's a bunch of tiers there. But what you do get is you get a direct interaction between a security check-in office area and where people are coming in, so that you can have an ID check at that window that's on the cursor before somebody gets into the building. And then they can be let in. You know, there could be a number of steps. There could be a camera and a buzz in at the first door. There could be another buzz into the waiting room and then a final buzz through to the lobby. And it isn't through all those steps of security that somebody would be able to enter the actual school. And then there's space left over where your existing security check-in is for a security office, which kind of gives you a nice visual on the front of the building and people coming in. So those are some nice enhancements that I see to it. But we did have some other designs, but I think this was the one that was favored by most people.
Okay. Wasn't sure if it was in the existing footprint or was there an expansion?
No expansion. So it's all renovation. We would probably have to look at something over here, maybe. I think there is hardscape here. But, you know, would we have to do something with signage, or maybe there's a little like canopy over it that says, you know, visitor entrance, so they don't go here, just to direct. But there's no addition, it's all renovation. So that means that it would be aidable at your aid ratio versus an addition that would be potentially, you know, all local fare. So that's what we were trying to do. We're trying to accommodate the two functions, the security entrance, the check-in, the waiting, and then the security office all within the existing footprint. So you do lose a little bit. You lose that kind of waiting area off to the side. But I think during drop-off and dismissal, this would function very similarly to the way it does now, because you have, if you look at that angled piece in the middle, that's essentially the same width as the doors, 12 feet, so that you can funnel right out of the two corridors and come right out and exit out through the vestibule A01. That would be the student path to exit. Because it would be too much of a bottleneck to have them go through the vestibule system, and that's not typically how school districts are doing it anyway. They have an entrance for dismissal and drop off, and then they have a basically secure small entrance for visitors during the day. Everything's locked down on the outside.
Would this be attached to like a button underneath here to like hit it and that would unlock that door?
Yeah, so that's easy to set up, and sometimes it's not even a button anymore. It might just be a program on the screen or a clip. But yeah, those could all be set up to like the first door, the second door, the third door. Again, cameras. We could talk about what level of security you want in that window. That's a big discussion that we have every time we do these. Do you want it to be a window film that will be harder to break through? Do you want it to be bulletproof glass? And anywhere in between. There's a lot of different options for that, but obviously you have to have a visual between the person checking people in and that vestibule. and usually some kind of pass through, so they can at least pass through like an ID to get scanned.
And how often is the entrance space used for, we call it like distribution, right? Tables set up, people coming in, coming out to pick up plants that they've ordered, right? It doesn't look like there's any space for that function anymore.
Right, I would say that we would probably want to move that down. I think about when the fifth grade for their whale watch always does that cookie.
Yeah.
They always sell so much, but they do it down in the auditorium. We'd probably have to move all that distribution down to the auditorium foyer area, yeah.
You know, I'm just, I agree. But I just look at it and I'm thinking, what are we really getting? I mean, we're taking out the tiered area. But I don't. We're adding a little bit of technology in there. But I'm not sure I see $1.1 million. So I'm just, what am I missing?
Yeah, and you know, the dollar amount is one thing. When you think about, we do have a lot of students who have custody type battles. And we also have community members, who are no longer allowed on campus, but, who may have a mental illness. And so what has happened is we have had these individuals enter the school and, until if it's after hours, because Officer Hopper is gone, until I can get to that front entrance, that person is with our students, can get to any part of our school where, this would allow us to contain that person for some amount of time. And right now, while we're checking in IDs,
So I understand those points. I'm just curious what we're getting.
What's your $1 million buying?
Yeah, but I don't see
You
it.
don't see $1 million there.
I don't, 1.1.
Is it the door?
I'm just, I understand the need and I understand what we're trying to do. I'm just not sure I see it in the drawing.
And the one thing that I would say that I've heard from other districts is that they want the ability to do that ID check before they get in.
900.
Okay, but I can put a computer system in a camera in about 2 hours.
Yeah, and
All right.
hold
That,
it up to the screen and do a scan that way.
Are the partitions that are in those rooms, is that glass? Is that a solid wall? I know that there's glass in the window where they would pass through.
I think we were envisioning that it would be solid around the office with some windows, and then it would be more glass in the waiting area.
And is that where the
Glass
cost
storefront.
comes in? Because that would be the bulletproof glass or the,
Some Mount Morris, if you've ever been there,
I've heard that there,
Yeah.
yes. I've heard
there's a
that.
Main Street block wall that's
Yeah.
poured solid, so if
Yeah.
somebody was to try to shoot through there, it's good, it can't go.
It's not.
It's gonna, bullets gonna slow down on the
Right.
block versus drywall, steel stud. So the idea was to, make that a solid wall with a bullet resistant glass. And we try not to say bulletproof, but
Right,
bullet
right,
resistant
I
glass,
apologize.
yeah, and. That proved, I think, has proven to be a successful, it was SEI actually that designed it. Yeah, and I think that's what they're suggesting here.
And that's not very costly, I wouldn't think.
what do other schools say?
I'm sorry.
That's what mom said.
Mount
I was
Morris
just
has the
describing
most
Mount Morris.
elaborate one, but there are a lot of double, like, hairy. You kind of walk in and you're shut in an area like,
Flash roof is like that as well.
yes.
It's the new concept that's coming to most of
They
the
unlock
ICU.
the second set
Okay,
of doors,
alright.
but I think they're using whatever their structures are to just try to make them secure. Mount Morris is arguably the most secure because it has that double system. But there are varying degrees, and I think you're right. You're right.
Another home run?
It is clear that
4?
Mount Morris has invested funds in creating that. Is it more or less safe than a Perry or electric? I don't know.
I'm just trying to like, I've been in many Department of Defense facilities and
Yeah.
they're not like that. I'm just, I don't see it. That's all I'm doing. I can always be convinced, but I'm sorry, I
And
don't
if
see
you
one
go
point
back
one
to the
million.
existing plan, and if you kept it, again, these are brainstorming things that we're
I get
doing,
it.
that's a workshop, so you could keep that and enhance the security of your vestibule like you're talking about with some sort of scan of an ID where it's not a direct handoff. It's something they hold up to a camera and it gets into a computer and then they check it and then they let them in. So there's definitely options for that.
If you have a current vestibule.
Yeah, you have,
Space.
Yep.
That has to be modified.
that vestibule and we don't. That's what every school.
I think that was kind of the feedback that we were getting from the community is that they agree with the principle of the idea of a more secure setting, but not necessarily Fort Knox type like that.
Or changing.
However, the general community is also not aware of the full spectrum.
Exactly.
And we do have to consider forward thinking about the changing needs.
I think when people I've talked to in the community, like, people are in support of enhanced security, but trying to use what we have now instead of the last slide, like changing all of that, because we do have that vestibule and like just being more thinking outside the box, like how can we use that better? That's feedback that I.
Yeah.
So the balance is welcoming.
Right.
And security.
Yeah, yeah.
We're trying to find that balance.
Good point. So maybe just revisiting some of the, I think we all share the concept. Just not sure what the functional answer is.
It might be possible to do something to enhance the security of the space now, but not necessarily do the full upgrade yet.
Like a shelf of that.
Phased approach. Okay.
Is there a dollar value that you see if that's one of the cases that the design that was priced $1 million is too much for a secure vestibule? Is there a dollar figure that we would try to maybe put some enhancements to?
I don't know. Again, I'm just gonna speak to myself. I don't personally want to put a number on it.
Okay.
I just, my thoughts are, I see what you have, I just don't see $1.1 million there. And again, I just come back, I can put a computer system in, a camera myself, and I won't charge that much.
But I think the message is, yes, give us a secure entrance. Please take another look at it and see if we can.
Yeah.
See what we can do to make it accommodate your needs.
Okay, and so architects always like a challenge, but
We do like the challenges, but what I was gonna say is right here, I mean, this is just food for thought. If you go back to the existing plan, try to, here's another idea, make this your security officer's office. And then build a little office right here, and that's a direct check-in with a window.
Yeah.
And then keep the rest of the tiers.
That's what
I mean, that could be something that might be in between your idea of the computer system and the whole.
Yeah.
Does the principal's office, like that shared wall, is there access where they could do the check-in?
No.
Where
This
that's
is
still,
Yeah, probably.
It's probably what.
4 feet.
does it have an elevator? That, what I've seen is that vestibule is attached to a person that's doing the screening. And then they come in and the SRO is some sort of security is in, has access to everything. But that first point is where you're doing the scanning.
I like him.
Yeah. where
He's
you
my boy.
Actually.
Yeah,
check
he's my
IDs
boy.
or just
He's my boy. Yeah.
Thank you.
what's next, pre-K?
Yes.
Pre-K, so if you remember last time, the difference between this 1A and 1B is just the UPK design. So where that asterisk is 2.4 million, if you go to the next slide, it's the same slide, except it's 7.7 million. And so we have two designs here for your thought consideration relating to UPK, and we went through them at the last meeting, but we have the plans to show. And the problem is the second option, the 1B, is much more, there's much more involved with it, and there's a lot of work in the elementary school versus this is the 1A option that we talked about last time, where we're essentially renovating existing space that you have down in this wing where the existing campus office is, which used to be the fax room and music and so forth. And we're just sort of redesigning the space.
Fucking judge, man.
And the reason we did this, if you recall, the last meeting is that two UPKs are adjacent to plumbing that's already there. So there's an existing bathroom and we're just adding another bathroom. So it's easy to do the plumbing, and you have the required UPK toilet room in each of the UPK rooms that would be needed. And then the balance of space on the left is a combination of art and music. And that could be also discussed, how big is each room and so forth. But that was the idea that we gave campus to price up for that 1A option.
I missed out.
No, it's a good summary. At least for 1A, do you want to go through 1B?
Yeah, we can do one.
One last thing, Killen Room is moving from
Yeah,
the elementary.
office, yeah. all
Yep.
with carpeting.
And then this music room's a little bit smaller than the music room in the next option, just because we're trying to,
Is it
Fit.
bigger than the current space that they have?
I'll get back to you on that. I don't know how big the current room is. But there is room within here to push these walls around and finesse some of the numbers.
I think it's critical to talk here too about the numbers with UPK. So our numbers have declined tremendously over the last 2 to 3 years. So we have
Our
200,
numbers meaning what?
like
UPK number?
UPK numbers. So we have up to with an 8 in there, 18 is the max. So you could have 36 students. Right now, and we have talked about with Pride and Joy about offering transportation. We have 18 kids right now signed up. So our grant money completely diminishes because it's the number of students that actually attend. So I think that's imperative that if this were to be on site, we could bolster that up, have them here, curriculum. I think that's a key component that would be advantageous to our district.
Okay, yeah, thank you, because
They
I
can
was
also
about ready to
access-
jump into that and say, I don't have any issue with the left side of that. But just walk me through the rationale of UPK, which you started doing, which I think is helpful. So the intent is to increase the numbers, gain.
At least have 2
what?
classrooms. That would get us to our max of full state aid for UPK.
Talk us through a return on investment.
So basically, you have $278,000, right? So teacher aid, hypothetically new staff member 45 plus pennies, you're talking 75. 75 is 150, and aids probably, we'll say on the light side, 50. So that's 100, that's 250. So with a UPK teacher and an aide to support 36 students, you'd be running that program at 250. You could then add furniture for the rest of that money, things of that nature. We already have ViewSonics that would be down in there. So you're getting the max bang for your buck in terms of money allotment. Whereas right now, that money's going to Pride and Joy, and it's offsite. They don't know our staff, they don't know the building. This would all acclimate them to this site.
Okay, and this is all aidable.
Plus students would
Yeah.
have access to OT certified,
Correct.
OT, PT, speech.
Yes, we would,
In-house.
and what we'd most likely have to do, this situation in, hire additional staff. And then there's reimbursement from the county for those services. So, it wouldn't come through the UPK grant, that would come through CPSE funding.
Natalie had a question.
I'm sorry.
How many students would you have, one teacher and one aide?
18, up to the max of 18.
You have the return on your investment, Mike, is any kid right now who's not in a public school UPK program is not guaranteed that needs OTPT speech. Any of the services are not guaranteed the services. There's a huge shortage, huge. Although you're putting your kids way behind when they go to kindergarten. So if we could have them on site and you have those services available, and then also those UPK teachers working with the kindergarten teachers, like you're that much further ahead than the kindergarten. So
Yeah.
like there's a lot of
Okay.
advantages
It decreases your cost
in the long
on
run.
the back end.
Yeah.
Okay, no, okay,
And that would help identify, because they would be in-house and we would know about what's actually coming into kindergarten instead of that unknown.
Right, I mean, how we do that now is we go and we visit those classrooms.
Right.
And, you know, so we start to get an idea, but you don't know those students, they don't know us, so absolutely.
okay.
There's a question back there.
Just for, from the parent perspective, daughter just graduated from but one of our huge issues was grant care.
Right.
She wasn't eligible for it here. It's definitely cheaper to do a wide route program than it is to have them privately. And that's a big reason that families can't send their kids to here.
That's good feedback, and that's,
Yeah.
because I don't remember when, we used to have before school care here, it hasn't been, I don't know,
Jim, about how the board was back.
no,
No, it wasn't called, I'm not saying it doesn't cause, but it was about the same.
there wasn't before care,
Just.
So I don't remember when, but that is always something the Y is always looking to. Yeah, so we can always prompt and ask the Y if that'd be a possibility.
So. It also seems to be a hot button issue about this in the UK. Regardless of any of that, we need instructional space in school. And there's also the need that the art and elementary art and chorus have also asked for revisions to their space. So I think if you lead with that, avoid the buzzword, you get better at it.
I agree, and I just heard a lot of really good justification statements, and not just financial, but otherwise, that really make this a need.
And you're not touching the elementary school at all. Just avoid that.
Also, there is some elementary school, the way that there's no elementary school in, but there are elementary classes in.
Correct.
They're walking so far.
Mhm.
Would actually bring elementary school kids to.
It's right in.
It makes them feel like you belong.
How did the UPK kids, what would be the, they're just gonna come through the main entrance of the.
Or could they come through the back?
Most like, well, I mean, we would, the teachers are, the UPK kids aren't going to come in, like if they're dropped off on the buses, they're not coming in. Our teachers are gonna be out there meeting them, getting them and then taking them in. You know, there could be a potential. I don't know about the back entrance, just thinking about the flow of kids, could be swimming upstream. So, yeah, so, but there would certainly be ways to navigate that, but they would not just get out the bus.
What was the feedback from the art and music teachers?
So Chandra expressed a need for her space to be renovated and slightly expanded. I don't know if this design does that with the risers and whatnot. I'm not sure.
The big feedback was risers for 75 students and then a classroom configuration for 24. And I think her goal was, is she practicing in the auditorium right now?
Yeah.
So I think it was to get away from that. There is an opportunity in this design to shift these walls, finesse the square footages, rotate these risers. They would be portable or freestanding. They wouldn't be poured in place like what you had before. So right now, we pretty much just divide it up almost evenly, but maybe UPK gets a little smaller and elementary school gets a little bit larger.
So with moving the kiln, is there additional safety features that are needed, like heat sensors and stuff like that.
It's a rated wall assembly, it's electric kiln, so it's relatively safe.
Did you say 75 people in risers? I think you're getting 75 people in the classroom. That just seems unrealistic to put 75 people in the classroom. I think they would have to stay in the auditorium for the purposes of being on risers. If you want 75 as full.
What square footage would you need to be at? Because there's certain capacity restrictions, because that was one of the goals with the middle school, high school choral room, was that when we took the tiered floor out, she would be able to have her chorus in there. She was having 80 to 90 students in chorus. And we're like, no, your capacity's 60 something in that
It
room.
depends on what the room's being used for. Classrooms calculated at 20 square feet per occupant. Typical classroom assembly ranges 5 square feet per occupant for standing room, 7 if it's chairs, I think 15 for chairs and tables. So it varies based on function.
But code wise, if we, you know, if we were to do an actual layout of this room and maybe the wall moves, we actually do a 75 person riser or something, the chairs get tightened up. We could potentially be in a situation where we had to add an exterior door right there. Because you're over 50 people. So 50 people, we might have to look at the code and see. Do we have to pop a door in, or does it make sense to put the elementary school and flip flop the art and use those doors at the bottom? That would be all part of it, what we would investigate.
Because that's landlocked in the building. That's not, the
Well, that's the
exterior
outside
doors.
wall at the bottom.
No, it's not.
This is.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, this, which door is in campus's office? This one? Right now?
Right
Correct.
inside.
Yes.
And you can go right outside there. Out of that existing home.
But I think what Ted was getting at is if you put the music room back over here, now you have 2 exterior walls that you can place a door versus having
Right.
one exterior wall.
But you
So,
don't have plumbing.
Right, or where the art is, could potentially be there too.
right.
And then you have already the door without cutting a door in. But that would be part of the design you'd have to look at. Do you guys want to look at the other design or the one that was in the elementary or?
I think it's just expensive.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have.
Right.
And this is an item that would probably need to be in the base project, because you don't want to highlight it within just a prop itself, is how the conversations I've heard.
Yeah, I would just,
I
yeah,
don't understand.
I would just, I would include it in the base project, possibly just with renovation of interior classrooms.
Shit.
Next.
Boiler.
Boiler.
How you gotta explain the boiler a lot.
We need that.
So right now you have 3. You have 3 8 million BTU boilers. You need at least 12 million BTUs to function. Right now, one's not functioning. So you're down to 16 million BTUs. So you are still able to provide heat in the winter. We are expecting one to die soon. So to Mark's point, we're looking at an emergency project to give you a 6 million BTU boiler, and in the event the other one dies, we would want to replace it in the CIP.
Yep.
So
So, yeah, we just approved not to exceed 3.
And up to 325.
325.
Yep, we actually talked to Joe Shields yesterday and Kyle, and he's gonna refine kind of that scope, get contingencies in there as well too, architectural fees, just to see if we have to refine that. So we don't want to have it up to 325 and then they come back and say, hey, it's actually gonna be 330. So if we have to bump it to maybe 350, 375,
Okay,
we're thinking about doing that, but from the quote and everything else, he still thinks the 325 would be appropriate, but I would rather go high and undershoot rather than undershoot and go over.
so my question then is, this one is a second boiler beyond that. Why is that 474 instead of 350?
There's 2 years of escalation on that.
So,
That, yeah, these are fully loaded numbers.
That's a project cost. So it has incidentals, construction contingency, escalation, design contingency, all included within the plate.
so if we increase yours to 650, can we get 2 boilers without the 22% contingency?
Pay me now or pay me later, right? I mean, there were talks about, do you do 2 now? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I would leave that to kind of a recommendation from campus and from SEI.
Fair question.
Is some of the site work that's gonna be done with this emergency project, like flu work and all of that, will additional work need to be done for the other boilers when they get replaced, or is all of that work being redone that the other boilers will retrofit into?
So right now, the emergency project is just remove a boiler, put boiler back in, plug and play, for lack of better term. In the CIP, there might be an opportunity to reorganize, try to make it a more efficient layout, so it might cost a little bit more if we decide to consolidate the footprint of the boilers or line them up, extend the pad, reroll some of the piping. But right now in the emergency project, bare bones, we're looking at remove it, install it.
Yeah, but you still had to put in like different flu work and stuff because of the high efficiency nature of it.
Yeah, we have all the numbers for the boiler.
But so that work would have to be done with each boiler, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
I don't know if you can get both of them deemed emergency today. Which I think might be your issue not to, because if you could do both at one time, we would definitely recommend it. I think getting it deemed emergency was a fine line that was getting played.
And that's because it's at the end of life already?
Right.
Yeah, I guess SED looked at it, like, you didn't know this was coming.
Right, it was listed on the 2015
Okay,
DCF.
all right.
It was listed on the 2015 BCS, it was rated as a 5, which was a
That's a
low
lower
priority.
priority.
Yeah, and we did try to look to incorporate it into the EPC because of the high efficiency, but we were unable to afford it.
It's right here. I want to pass that along, but that's where it was. I love the cost at that point. But yeah.
That was actually COVID.
Yeah.
Everything was
Well, that number was repair and maintenance, because at that point, the boiler had useful life left in it.
55 grand.
Yeah, so that's, so at that time, it was not,
It was
it
not
was
full
not
replacement.
scheduled for replacement, so that was just a mechanical.
Call it a day.
Yes.
I'm glad they came in the dollars.
So, all right, I hate to belabor the boiler discussion, but we've got one potentially on order here. These are all 1987 vintage. This particular one, the 474. Best estimate? I mean, do you think it's gonna survive a year or less or more, or what happens?
It's showing symptoms of boiler number 2, which is the one that died. It's on its way.
I mean,
And talking to several contractors, you should replace the boilers, you know, in this CIP. You shouldn't wait.
We should do all of it, right?
But, so let's talk timing for a second. So let's say it stays in here in the CIP. Go through all of the public votes, it passes, we go to SED. So we looking at that particular boiler a year and a half from now? That's
26.
okay, so I just want to get to timing because I don't know that we have 1.5 or 2 years or whatever it is.
Because SCD right now is at 8 months. Review,
Yeah.
And they're in the process of the third party,
Mhm.
but that isn't set yet.
Yeah.
But then you start design.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying 26, it'll be this time, 2 years from now.
And
Really?
Kyle, I think I heard you say a few minutes ago, each one of these is eight.
8 million BTU.
Yes, 8 million BTUs, and we will be replacing with 6 million BTUs,
So
but in reality, you need roughly 10 to 12 million BTUs to run your
Sometime
school.
in the next 2 years, if that dies, the one dies, we're
You still have redundancy.
What are you saying? Because you have an 8, right, Kyle?
Yes, so right now, you have 16 million BTUs that are operating and 8 million BTUs that are dead. One boiler is dead, 2 are running the school.
we're gonna replace one.
We want to replace one as a part of the emergency project. That will give you 3 operating boilers as soon as it's replaced. We expect the other one, boiler number 1, to die in the next couple of years. That will leave you with 2 operating boilers. And
Okay.
then we would replace the dead one in the CIP.
You probably could deem if it dies again in less than that period before we replace, you probably could deem another emergency project. And you would have the capital improvement funds to be able to help pay for that at that point, for the emergency trip. That we could do.
The concern with the emergency project is if you don't replace it now and you go into this winter with 2 operating boilers and 1 dead boiler, what if boiler number 1 dies and you're left with 1? So
So I think what I'm hearing you ask is,
So we should
Do we-
pull it out of here and do it now,
do 2
like the,
on our own.
that's what I'm,
And if it does happen, like you said, that is.
I think we would save money. I don't know if we can afford it, but
I think that's the big thing is
Yeah.
cost, and that was, some of the things that, I sent to Cindy today to, as agenda items for the finance committee. There are options, right? So right now, the one emergency boiler, 15 years, we'll get aid back on it. Because the second one is not necessarily deemed an emergency boiler, because we eat that cost.
No.
So we're not getting any sort of aid. And I think there are, iterations of how we pay for it. Do you use all unassigned fund balance? Do you use 1,000 from unrestricted reserves, another 100,000, and then 125 on unassigned? I think those are all things that the finance committee will have to kind of make a decision upon.
Okay. When's the finance committee meet? That, you meet July 8th or after that?
August is fine.
August, the next one? Okay. Thank you.
But we gotta kind of get a move on ordering this, right?
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
So, special meeting?
4 to 6 weeks right now.
Yeah, I think we'd probably recommend that we wrap this up by the end of the month.
and as kind of like school work kind of die down, where they'd be able to come and knock it out, like is fall like a good time where probably by the end of November, maybe end of December, we would be completed.
Yeah.
You think September?
That far in.
It won't take long if they're taking one out and putting that one back in its place. It's not, it's an extended work period.
Scott, would be any. You got one that's emergency and stuff like that, but buying 2 boilers from the same vendor, would be any savings. Regarding, okay, the purchase, you want an X amount of price, but if you're gonna buy 2. You could get some savings out of that, maybe. Installation.
I heard the BOGO too.
I don't know about BOGO, but at least some, cost efficiencies and installation and.
I know in these type of circumstances, we just want to try and maximize our aid as much as possible. And so without that second boiler having an emergency project being deemed, that just worries me. Again, that's a decision that the board can can discuss, but, anytime that we can maximize aid and get 71%, $71.3 back on $1,000, that is money well spent.
And I'm hearing you say the second boiler is no aid, if they, because it hasn't been
Correct.
declared an emergency. So you're
Yes.
getting aid on one, but you're taking it on the chin for the others.
Unless it dies.
To Jason's point,
Unless it is. Yeah.
most of the time, we can heat this building with one boiler. Unless it's 0 degrees out, that's when we need 2 boilers. So the one boiler for most of the time can heat our building efficiently.
With the emergency, we're aidable, what did you say?
71.3%.
Um,
And right now, so like if we hypothetically spend $325,000, we'll get 71.3% on the 325 over 15 years. We will get reimbursed that money.
and the CIP is also aidable.
Correct.
At what?
Same thing, unless we,
So it's all the same.
unless it goes up potentially, or it could go down, but hopefully it stays the same. Or goes up.
Yeah, it's actually a better match on the aid because you're using the aid as your pay. Versus the emergency. We pay all up front, get the aid over time.
Okay.
Which would further clean our reserves. Cleaning.
So as much as there be efficiencies in doing two aid
Yeah,
rise
it's not aidable.
installations.
Right.
It's not gonna be anywhere near 71%.
No,
No.
no, we won't.
So financially, doing it within the CIP is the best option.
Yes.
Correct.
And without that emergency is because we had to, and we're still getting the same rate, but it's
Right.
not as great for the
But we're-
district financially. And option 3 is we're holding on to a boiler that's just, everybody cross their fingers.
Yeah, but we
Because
roll
there's
the
no
dice.
options.
We use it for
There
parts,
just
but we
aren't
don't-
options for aid. Okay.
But we did an upgrade to the other boiler, didn't we, Cindy?
I'm sorry?
We did an upgrade to the other.
I
boiler.
believe all 3 of them.
They've been all rebuilt. I don't necessarily know maintenance schedules. I don't know replacements of, the flame. I'm probably using burner, using the wrong terminology, but I know the actual boilers have, the engines pieces that have all been retooled and re-outfitted, rebuilt.
So the one good one is still alive. All right. Just had an upgrade to it, so it's got some extended life added to it. So now you still have 2 solid boilers, one new and a relatively rebuilt one that'll last here for some time.
Yeah, right now you don't have any redundancy. You have a good boiler, you have a dead boiler, and you have a boiler that's on life support. So. Buy a boiler on the emergency project, you got 2 good boilers and 1 boiler on life support. That one dies, you're still good to heat the building.
And replacing two.
Right.
Replacing the one on life support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Warming.
All right, good conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on the dust collector? I can just throw in that dust collectors are getting more and more expensive if you are actually using it for the purpose it's intended. There is a lot of code changes since the original dust collectors were put in. There's additional volumes, there's additional safety protection, spark detection inside the ductwork. Sometimes there's sprinkler systems required. So I mean, these dust collectors have gone up quite a bit in the last 10 years, and a lot of it's due to code changes. And so if we decide to go forward, that's the number that we're looking at right now, all in with contingencies.
Dust collector will move outside and we will add fire suppression. And unfortunately, the entrance for the water is by the main entrance, so that's a large cost running pipe down to the tech wing at the opposite end of the building.
Just for my, I don't have any debate over this, and just for my sake, can you, what's wrong with the current system? Just-
And
Okay.
that is a BCS item, even though it's not under the BCS category.
Okay.
would scrap the existing one or what you do with it?
That was also in the last project and was VE'd out due to budget issues.
Okay. Yeah, it's, I get the health and safety side of it, just, okay.
So as far as next steps, does it make sense for the team to come back to the board with a base proposition and what's included in that and the cost? And then some ideas on one or two other alternate proposals?
Yeah, can we just go through them? Just to summarize?
Yeah.
I mean, I just, my quick math is 21.6.
Without.
So let's go through those.
And he didn't, I don't think you had the new numbers. Did you have the new
So the
numbers?
gym, so I don't know, the gym is 11.4 with some changing space and storage space with options for the roof and air management. Right, and I don't know what number that actually I threw in, I just left it at 11.4 right now. We took out site enhancement. The team rooms are 840. The moldy tunnel is
So that's, yeah, we talked about that we scale that back.
something
Scale
about
that back.
1.4 million. Whatever that's.
Team home space.
Yes.
Oh, team.
840.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in town, my,
Quarter renovations is in there, but with scope adjustment.
yes, I just left it at 840, but you guys tell us. So the quarters was 1.4, it's gonna be something less than that?
Right, we were just saying, that
Whatever
we
the
do it for this exercise, we put $1 million in or
Yeah.
something, whatever you guys want to do. Yeah, this is just a quick look at it.
Yep.
Yep.
The auditorium was 4.7.
And that could potentially be the second proposition.
The secure entrance is
We're gonna revisit that, right?
something less than whatever it is. 1.1. So I don't have that in my 21.6. The elementary art music UPK, I got 2.5.
That's the 1A option, yep.
Yes, 2.5.
The boiler, 474. Dust collector, 646. That's excluding the secure entrance, 21.6.
Did we want, though, we did talk about some of those 1.7 BCS items. Those are some of those maintenance items that we're probably gonna want to look to prioritize those needs.
Okay.
So one of the
And that might come down.
solutions, right, could be
Once we meet with
SEI
Aaron.
working with Aaron to go through and identify those, so we can come back with a better number.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, Aaron has a list. I think you said, Kyle, what is it, 20 items or something?
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
I mean, our general sense of that is that it's gonna be less than $1.7 million. So
Okay.
that might come down, but we have to vet that with
All
Aaron.
I think you gotta get that under 20, the base.
The whole thing.
I think the base is just good. I think you're, they're all,
Are you thinking
we can,
18?
yeah, we can see the need for all of them, but I think somehow you gotta sneak the base in under 20.
Okay.
1999.
Like you're 21 with or without the auditorium.
Or if it's Walmart 1988.
4.7.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you take the auditorium out of that, it's down near 16.
Yeah, so I just added them all up. I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily put some of the basics.
Right.
Yeah, I do think it would make sense to definitely include some components
Okay,
of the auditorium.
so to Craig's point though, if we took 4.7 out of that 21.7,
Yeah,
we're definitely under the 18.
but to at least guarantee
Okay,
some work that no matter
Gotcha.
what, if the base thing
Okay.
passes, some work gets done.
we can move the puzzle pieces around.
Right, you could tag one of those other pieces onto the auditorium.
Like a boiler?
No.
Some of the corridor stuff we
Right.
can tie to the auditorium side of it.
Okay.
Come off the base.
That fair.
Okay.
All the notes in red.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just had something about the gym, but I know that's a baseball. Just like looking at, I don't know how much it costs, but I do think it would be beneficial to look into air conditioning for the gym. More schools are doing it. We just had, I'm a teacher in school without air conditioning. We had to close early several days because it was so hot. It was over 100 degrees in the building, and we have more and more of these days, and currently there's a lot of kids using the gym for basketball.
This is.
Summer for basketball and volleyball. And right now, like I know we have 2 kids that are going and they're not even using the large gym right now because it is so uncomfortable and hot. And the floor is wet in there. So I don't know how to fix that, but if the large gym is that uncomfortable, that they're going up to the small gym and it's only June, like, how are they gonna use it all summer? So I don't know if that sounds good, but I think it's something to look into.
You did mention that management. From that standpoint, maybe air conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to look too. Okay, I think that's a good idea. And we'll do some more homework on the options for this corridor renovations and options for there were some other like tweaks we could make, secure entrance. So we'll come back and look through those tweaks also.
Do we wanna set a date on when we would come back and present to the board? We have a reorg meeting on the 8th. I don't know if that's enough time.
Start back.
Is that the only meeting in July?
As of right now, we
Yeah.
can look to schedule a second one if we need, but right now it's the only meeting scheduled in July.
So I can tell you this, so we've been looking at what I would say the unavailability dates of the board members. And July is kind of gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there literally is 1, 2, maybe 3 days here and there that. So we can always work things out.
Yeah.
I am.
In the auditorium, do you have a prioritized list of, out of the options that we talked about?
I would prefer like the entrance and the stage, or, is there something that they should be prioritizing for the base bid to be included in the ancillary items
I'm
separate?
not sure I heard anything that shouldn't be included, but I don't know enough about, honestly, I don't know enough about the details. To know.
I would prefer to use for their priority.
I would also look at just the sequencing of building it to make sure what we build first won't get trampled on. And if there's stuff in a prop that potentially the prop didn't pass, but the base did, what can we bring in later and still have it done? So there might be some sequencing of just the space in a discussion.
And a prop is simple majority.
Same, it'd be the same thing. Vote night, we should have something in the auditorium.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's very worthwhile. Thank you.
Appreciate all of your insights.
It was a no.
and conversations. Very helpful. That's true.
So David, entertain a motion to adjourn the meetings?
I would like to move, we adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.